Tobago, we even have Uganda, Zambia, Zimbabwe, and there's more countries as well. I understand that someone that I met recently who's from Ghana, they've applied and they've applied successfully. Next slide, please. Who is eligible? So, as I said, if you entered the UK before the 1st of January 1973 from a British Commonwealth nation, you are eligible automatically. If you are the child, grandchild, brother, sister, or cousin, or a close family member, or even a partner of someone who entered the UK in that time, and you've suffered losses due to what they've experienced, then you are likely to be eligible for the claim as well. So, a lot of people have a misunderstanding that you can only apply to the scheme if you've been faced with deportation, which is not true. Of course, you are eligible for the scheme if you have faced deportation or immigration, but you're also eligible to the scheme for impact of life. So even if you've never been threatened with deportation but you come before that time, it's likely that it would have had a negative impact on your life, whether you were left in your home nations by your parents, or whether you grew up with fractured relationships with your siblings because you all didn't grow up together, or any other circumstances really. You can also apply, not just for yourself if you come before 1973, but you can apply for your parents or family members that come before that time who are no longer alive. And then your children can apply as well. So if you entered the UK before the 1st of January 1973 and you had children, your children can also apply, because it's likely that whatever you went through impacted you so much that it impacted the way that you parented your children, and it impacted the quality of life that your children have when growing up. There's 3 different types of applications. The applications are, if you entered the UK before the 1st of January 1973, then you are a primary claimant, meaning that you come in that time, you are the prime person, you're the number 1 person who this compensation scheme is for. If you are the child or close family member of someone who entered the UK in that time, you need to complete the close family member form. It's very, very, very important that you fill out the form with the correct information on the correct form. If you put all of your information on a primary claimant form, but you didn't come in that time, you're the child or family member of someone who come in that time, then it's likely that they're going to say, no, you're not eligible. You will be thinking that you're not eligible for the compensation, but that's not true. You've just put the information on the wrong form. And this type of information that you're writing down about your whole life story and all of the bad things that have happened to you or that you've experienced, nobody's going to want to write that twice. So it's very, 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 very important that you download and print the correct form. So, as I was saying, the primary claimant form is for the people who come before the 1st of January 73. For those who are the children or close family members, yours is the close family member form. But also, if your family members come before that time but they are no longer alive, then you need to apply on the deceased form application. It's called the application for estate.
Sorry, can you repeat that, sorry?
Yes, it's actually called the representative of estate application. So, I'm going to give you the government website details. It's very important that you take note and that you write this information down, because this information, if you listen to it and you do write it down, then it's likely that it's going to get you a higher reward, because there's certain things that you can claim for and there's certain pieces of evidence that you need to understand that you can use. Next slide, please. So, as I was saying, you can claim for deportation and immigration, but you can also claim for impact on life, so you have to evidence how this has impacted your life. And many people say, oh, well, I've got no evidence, but of course you've got evidence. If you've ever been to the doctors and said to them that you're feeling stressed, or if he's ever said you've got depression or anxiety or any of those conditions, if you've ever had antidepressants or whatever, you can use that as evidence that you've suffered. If you've ever had any type of engagement with support services, that's evidence that you have that you've required support. So all you need to do to get these types of information is contact the agencies where you've used support or where they've acknowledged that you've been suffering. And that can look like, so as I said, medical evidence. You can also use If you've ever claimed benefits, you can request a letter from them to state when you claim benefits and what type of benefit it is as well. So if you've ever had to claim for like health issues, you can use that. But even if you claim like any type of job-related benefits, you can use that as evidence that you've struggled since you've been here. There's other types of evidence that you can use as well, like police records. If you've ever been in trouble with the police, even whether you've been to prison or not, whether you were found guilty or not, it doesn't matter, you know. It's just evidence that you've struggled with your life, with managing your life. You can use all of that evidence. If you've got any evidence of letters from the Home Office where they've asked if you're British or got your right to be here, you can use that type of evidence. If you've ever been deported, ever had to face deportation issues or immigration issues, you can evidence that as well. So some people keep documents and some people don't. But those of us who don't keep our documents, you can contact these agencies, including the police, including prisons, including deportation centres, and get evidence of where you've been. If you've never been in none of them and you still think, how do I get evidence? Well, for the sisters in here, a lot of you have evidence that you've got children. Have your children experienced issues in education? Have you yourself experienced issues in education? Have you ever been denied education and been asked to prove your right to be here? Or even the fact that some of us have children that have been harassed in school by the schools and been expelled and been suspended and been harassed by the schools and treated unfairly. You can use that as evidence as well. So the types of losses that we evidence, it's not just financial losses or educational losses or even to do with our health, but even facing racism in society. You can use that. Now, some, especially the elders, they may not have evidence of the racism they experienced back then, but there is evidence that Britain was a hostile environment back in the 50s and 60s and 70s. There's evidence because the UK government even acknowledged that Britain was a hostile environment then. So if I was you, I would just look up some information that relates to Britain being a hostile environment and use that as evidence to show that when you was here in that time, that's what type of environment it was. So, in order to apply as a representative of an estate, that's applying on behalf of our deceased family members. So if your mum, nan, granddad, whoever come in that time and they're no longer alive, you have to apply for the representative of an estate application. You must show that the person who has died must have been eligible for the scheme. So say for example, if I was applying for my granddad and my grandfather's no longer alive, I have to first of all prove that he would have been eligible for the scheme. I can prove that by having his birth paper or passport to show his date of birth and place of birth. Also by any documents that prove that he was in the UK. That could be medical records, proof of national insurance number, proof of address, letters from the bank, whatever. If they have a death certificate, which most people should have, that's again evidence of where they've died with their details on. So if they've died in the UK and they've been your parent and they've had you in the UK in 1971 or whenever, then that's clear evidence of the timeline of their life. What you have to do is you kind of have to write it kind of like a biography to show that if you're the elder generation, show at what point did you come here or learn that you was coming to England, then what your journey was. So some of the elders, when I've been helping them with this, they've explained that their mom told them that they're going on holiday to the UK, they've got a plane here, they come here, and then after some weeks, they asked, Mom, when are we going back to Jamaica? And they were advised, we're not going back, this is our home now. So people write out your journey of whatever your journey was, of how you arrived to the UK. Then, if you had to pay for naturalisation or neutralisation, which is the same thing, it just has two different names, if you had to pay for that process, then you can put that down under immigration and deportation. The reason being is you never should have had to have paid to be British because you were British by birthright under the British Nationality Act 1981. The British Nationality Act 1981 stipulates that any person born in a British Commonwealth nation is a British subject. A British subject just means that you are British